Hi, Kat. Oh, you're on mute.
There we go. Hello.
Hi, how are
Hi,
you?
how are you?
Wonderful.
Good. As Danielle said, I'm Kat. I call myself an impact strategist, and I recently set up, Share Impact. Probably it really sort of launched in January 2017, but I only went full time in the last couple of months. So it's been a really exciting time for me, kind of going full time in this new venture. And before that, just a little bit of background, like Danielle was saying, before that I ran a social enterprise with my best friend, Jen Bourne, called Solutions for the Planet, which is an equally grand title. And in England, supporting young people aged 11 to 14 to think about how they could tackle sustainability issues that they were concerned about, through a year-long programme where they got mentored and developed their business solutions to sustainability problems. So it was a competition programme, and we worked with them throughout a whole year where they got industry experts to come into their schools and help them develop their programme. And they had various stages of competition, and the finals is in Parliament in Westminster in the summer each year. So it's a really great programme and great results for the young people, but also we're really passionate about bringing schools and businesses together and kind of sharing the expertise so that the businesses actually learn a lot about from the creativity of the kids as well. So I did that for 3 years, and that was my first real sort of foot in the door in social entrepreneurship. Before that I knew very little about it, but we were really keen. Jen's background was more in that, and we were really keen to develop a trading business model, working in partnership with corporates in the energy, utility and construction sectors, and kind of getting their support both to pay for the programme, but also through them providing employees and mental support on the programme. So we were really successful in doing that over the last 4 years, and now we have a team of 4 people, including Jen, who are employed to run the programme across 3 regions in England. And this year we'll work with about 4,000 young people across 40 schools, and it's really, really exciting to see the growth that we've had over the last 4 years. So I'm not there on a day-to-day basis anymore, but I'm still involved as a director. So that takes me more to my journey now into Share Impact, where this year I decided to go full steam ahead on my idea that I'd sort of been working on last year, in 2016, and I'd kind of parked it because I wasn't quite sure how to make the business work sustainably. But I came across a business model through a coach that I was working with, that I realised if I took the business online I'd be able to reach more people, and potentially make scale it bigger so that I could actually attract better income to not only employ myself, but actually deliver the impact that I want to deliver long term. So that's what's been really exciting. You asked me loads of questions at the start, Danielle, but
I know. I'm just so excited.
So I don't know what's next. What should I?
I think that's the perfect kind of background to set the stage of where you came from, what excites you about the space. And I'm curious because you are really focused on this communicating and sharing impact piece, and working with social entrepreneurs on that. And I think it's a huge piece. It's almost like, in my mind, fits into that foundational root cause of any kind of challenges that you're facing as a social enterprise, probably stem back to some challenges in that base layer of communicating and sharing your impact. So what drew you to focus in that particular area?
Yeah, so I think it came from, it kind of emerged from my time in Solutions for the Planet. Because we're a startup, we're involved in lots of different startup programs, and so I had the great opportunity of engaging with lots of different social entrepreneurs, starting out, doing all sorts of different things. But the conversations we had, we often saw lots of social entrepreneurs sort of struggling with pitching correctly, winning business. And it's not that we were experts, we just seemed to learn how to do it very quickly, and we're achieving and kind of winning those pitches very quickly. And so it was really things that we learned how to do on the job, but I realised anyway that others weren't learning how to do that in the same way. for whatever reason, I think there's just, we had some slightly different skills or a different approach. And so as I kind of was exploring what I wanted to do next as a social entrepreneur, that was one of the things I felt that I could help with, in that I thought, when I worked with Jen, I kind of led on all the marketing and communications, and I don't have a marketing or communications background. I'm not, it's not my background, but I had to learn quickly, and I kind of just, I've always done that in all my jobs, kind of just got into it and kind of started. So I learned how to use MailChimp and like draft things. I recreated our website and thought about how people would sort of go through the journey. And I think one of the things I do is always put myself in the shoes of the customer or the person that I'm trying to communicate to. So it really came from that space of appreciating that lots of people were struggling with it. And the more research I did, I realized there is lots of evidence of some of the big umbrella organizations have done research and often say that marketing and communications is the one area that social entrepreneurs say they really struggle with. It's the skill gap area in their business. And I think that's purely to do with people often set up social enterprises around things that they're passionate about or, have experience in, which makes a lot of sense. Yeah. And, the business development side or the marketing side isn't where their skill set is. And I think people lack confidence in that because they think you have to be an expert in it. So I really kind of wanted to just bring some of the really basic stuff that I learned through the 3 years I was at Social Solutions to the Planet, and kind of share that with early stage entrepreneurs around, but focusing on how they use their impact story to attract customers, particularly because I think it's not done, and I don't think people measure their impact very well. And when they do measure their impact, they're not using it and leveraging it as a way to bring in income. And I think it's one of the most powerful ways to be able to tell people why you do what you do, and to kind of connect with people, whether they're businesses, individual customers, donors, funders, whatever. I think people connect based on emotions, feelings, memories, values, and it's those things in an impact story that connect with people. So I think by crafting that in a way that really explains who you are and why you do what you do, you can attract customers.
Definitely, it makes a lot of sense. It's a powerful connection, right? But it does take some awareness and some practice to really create messages that connect. So let's talk more about the impact measurement piece, because that is a question we do like to ask people on our show. And it's an even better question to ask you, because this is exactly in your wheelhouse. So how do you plan to measure your impact, and how are you measuring it? And has it evolved over time? Like, that's another interesting piece. As our organizations grow, should we be evolving that over time? What's your experience in that realm as a practitioner of measuring impact?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And somebody said this to me before. I was doing an interview with somebody who also has an organisation measuring impact and helping others with that, and they were saying, we never do it ourselves. So
shoemaker with no shoes.
Never sort of implement it yourself. But no, it's a really good question, and I'm really conscious that I need to do that. And so at the moment, there's two stages, because I'm still early days. At the moment, what I'm measuring impact. My main focus is who I'm supporting, the social entrepreneurs who I'm supporting, how what value they get from me in terms of, do they see increased customers, increased income, personal confidence in managing their impact strategy from having conversations or being on my courses, and also sort of what the longer term impact is for them. So sort of measuring not just at the point that I finished with a client, but also moving forward in terms of 3-6 months, or following up with them and seeing what the impact is over a bit more prolonged period. So that's really where I'm at the moment. But my vision's bigger than that, and so longer term, and hopefully over the next 12 months, I'll embed this more and know what I'm doing with it. But I really wanted to run a social enterprise because I couldn't decide what one thing I wanted to focus my energies on, because I wanted to do everything and help all sorts of different things that I'm passionate about. So one reason why I wanted to set up a social enterprise, not only to support the social enterprise sector, but also to deliver impact on issues that I'm really passionate about. And I've managed to focus in on 3 things. And those 3 things are youth leadership, in North Wales, where I live,
Mm-hmm.
and supporting young people in North Wales to understand and become social entrepreneurs, if that's of interest, or business owners, whatever, but with purpose. But also taking on leadership challenges, which is a particular interest of mine, and also something that I don't see a lot of in Wales. So that's one thing I'm really passionate about. And I think the way I will do that is developing my own initiatives here, and kind of enabling myself to do that because I'm able to do that through my business. The second one is women's empowerment, leadership, and supporting women to live lives of freedom. And that's on a global scale. And because that's such a big thing, I don't really know at the moment how I'm going to do that, but I think my focus at the start will probably be around supporting social enterprises that are working in that space, kind of providing a focus and maybe some pro bono support around that area. And then the third one is something that I really don't know a lot about technically at all, but it's something that's just seems like it's like I'm pulled to and I can't not do something about, which is around anti-trafficking and slavery on a global scale again. And so with that, at this stage, I think I will look to sort of invest some of my profits into initiatives that are looking to kind of challenge human trafficking and slavery. So they're my bigger things, and kind of how I measure that is all in development and kind of exploring that, because particularly around the trafficking and slavery, I need to learn a lot more before I can think about where I benchmark, what I'm looking at, how I can show my social impact. But yeah, it's a really, really good question that I'm asking myself every day and kind of journaling on and trying to think through what is it that I want to deliver on, and how can I measure that impact. And it's quite useful for me to go through and test out all my methodologies
on yourself
as well.
And what strikes me about the way you answered that question too is the awareness of or not the thoughtfulness, in thinking through the full picture. And I think that's what some people are really good at in terms of impact measurement, is connecting those dots between what am I doing now versus those really big picture visions, your three major causes that you also want to impact, and then being thoughtful about connecting the dots and what's relevant, what's not. So I think that's a really good piece of insight from your thought process there. So what do you see what mistakes are they making, social entrepreneurs, when they're tackling impact measurement as a whole, or communicating, either way? And it'd be interesting to hear your thoughts about how those are connected or the same or not the same.
Okay. So in terms of that, so the measurement, so I say two things that are very connected. So you really need to measure your impact, know what you're measuring and how to measure it, so that you can then craft what I call your impact story, to be able to then communicate it and plan out what that communications is going to look like. So it's two parts, and I work with people on both those parts separately, or I can do the whole piece and kind of take them through the journey of how do we, and that's why I call myself an impact strategist. It's mapping out what your impact is, what it should be, what bits to measure and what not bits to measure, which I think is really key, because you can end up measuring everything and it's not relevant.
Right. And not to mention a time suck, and then you're overwhelmed and not doing the actual work too, right?
Yeah. And I think that's when I was at Solutions to the Planet, I was a bit of an impact geek, and I was like, just measure everything, because that would be really fascinating to learn, both internally and also what we want to communicate externally. And then exactly that, I learned very quickly that it was just impossible to try and do and measure what you're doing. And it's really important, I think, when we're all, very under time pressure or want to focus on delivering the impact, that we're measuring the things that are actually going to help us in attracting more income, so that we can deliver more impact longer term. But in terms of the question around what I think the mistakes are, there's three things really. One is I think people can overcomplicate it and therefore get overwhelmed right at the early stages, which is completely understandable, because I think if it's something that you don't know how to do initially, or you've never done, it can feel overwhelming, and it can seem like something, like anything, if it's unknown to you, it's difficult and you don't know what it is. So I like to just encourage people to think through a really simple way to look at what their social impact is, in terms of just trying to reconnect with, well, why are you doing what you're doing, and why is it important to you? and what change is it that you're creating, and how could you sort of demonstrate that. And usually there's 2 or 3 ways you can do that. I mean, it can be more complicated, but it's it can be simple as well.
Right.
And the second one is really people often sort of measure outcomes rather than impact. So
like how many people are at the workshop, right?
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Or how many jobs, how many people you've been able to give a job to. Whereas, the impact is the result of having somebody going from unemployment to employment. What's the wider impact of that? And I think then that comes into a bigger piece around, well, what's important to you as an organisation? Because for some organisations, it'll be, if it's around employment, for example, that could be to do with health and well-being. But for others, it could be about reducing dependency on state benefits and stuff. So it really then draws into the values and assumptions of the organisation about what's important and why you're doing what you're doing again. And so there's all this piece about exploring who you are and why you're doing what you're doing, which then comes back to exploring that kind of bigger picture on what you measure and why you measure what you measure.
That's great. I haven't heard it put that way before, in terms of connecting that. I mean, just putting those pieces together, like what's important to measure depends on what's important to you as an organization. When you say it that way, it sounds kind of like obvious, but it's not when you're thinking of what to measure, is it?
And I think there's so many assumptions in our businesses that we never think about until we're challenged to think about it. And I think the only reason I have noticed that and I'm good at it is because I ask a lot of questions, and I'm just one of those people that goes, why? So, and I think the more you ask that, the more, I remember when we started Solutions for the Planet, we had this huge piece of paper, and we were like, because we knew that the organisation delivered impact in lots of different areas, but we really didn't know where we wanted to focus on in terms of how we would pitch it to corporates. So we literally had to draft it all out and go, why is this important? And prioritise, we had to prioritise the top 3 or 4 things that were important to us, but then also unpack why they were important to us so that we connected to it so that we could explain that further. And I think we often don't do that in businesses, which I think is really key.
Yeah.
And then just finishing on that, the third thing that I've kind of noted is that we often don't think about the audience in mind when we're communicating. So one example of this is websites. I see so many websites that communicate what the organisation wants to communicate about. We do this, we do it this way, and aren't we great because we're a social enterprise? And which is all good, valuable stuff, but it doesn't think about who the target audience is for your website and what happens, what do they read and what do they experience when they visit your website. And I think for me, it's all about what journey are you taking people on, and can they access the information that they need to make a decision? Because usually the people that you want to come to your website are customers. And so they're trying to find out information. And if it's not readily available in the way that they want to connect with it and understand it, then it's not useful to them, and they'll probably just switch off. So kind of really thinking about who your audience is when you're communicating something, and what journey you're taking them on in those communications.
100%. I couldn't have said it better. I think those are all super, super key pieces that we can all be more aware of as we're working on measuring and communicating.
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, I want to jump to, we got some really great audience questions.
Brilliant.
I'm just trying to think. Well, let's tackle the first one and see how we're doing for time. And we may go a little bit over if you have some extra time, because they're really juicy and I would love to hear what you think. But yeah, so the first one is, what's the best way to prepare a pitch with all of the relevant information to attract impact investors? And I think we could expand that. I mean, impact investors for sure, or almost any stakeholder, right? Like, how do we make our point?
Yeah, which I think is a really, really good question, and one that comes up a lot, obviously. So I think, and this is probably so obvious I kind of don't want to say it, but I think the key is preparation. and you cannot do enough preparation and planning. And I think, you know, if this is an impact investor that's potentially going to help you deliver what you want to do for the next 3 years, there isn't anything more important in your business. And so there isn't any amount of time that's too much to spend on preparation for that particular pitch. And I think sometimes it's, you know, we can get overwhelmed and scared about the fact that we've got this great pitch and this huge opportunity, but if we don't tackle it head on, it's not going to come off. And so I think, yeah, preparation is key, and, you know, making sure that that is your priority and focus. But I think the other things after that are sort of really thinking through, and these are some of the things I was just talking about previously, was around really thinking about who is the person you're pitching to. Have you done your research? Do you know what they're looking for? Do you know what they need, and what they are aligned to in terms of their values and worldview? And can you shift what you want to communicate to them in a way that connects to that? So by that I kind of mean, think less about what you want to sell to them, and think about how you can kind of match up what you have to offer to what their needs are and what they want to see. And I don't mean change what you want to do, or, you know, drift away from your purpose, because I think it's really important to, you know, be who you are and deliver what you want to deliver. But I think it's really important to talk in the language that they speak in, kind of, and connect to the things that they want to actually see happen. And that's the way you're probably most likely to have a successful pitch. And then secondly, kind of really take them on a journey of where you see them, where they can, the journey that you can take them on with you, because usually, so impact investors, you know, aren't just in it just to give you the money. They want to, you know, be involved in the journey somehow. And also it can be around sharing your story experience of what you want it to be in the future. So when we worked with one organisation, we really said, you know, this is where we are now, but if you invest in us, this is where we see us being in 3 years' time, and we want to go on that journey with you, and we want to develop with you, and kind of really telling them that story about where we saw where we could be if they got involved, I think helps the investor really see whether it's something that they want to participate in, and also see your vision and connect to your vision, rather than just, you know, this is what we'll deliver if you give us this money. I think if that's your approach, and if you want that kind of partnership, I think that's really key. And then the third thing is really using stories and using visual images, videos, to connect to people's emotions and memories and values, and in a way that words just don't do that. And I think it's, you know, some of the stuff around communications, the things we say and when we're reading don't stick with us as much as visual images do. And so again, I think if you're doing a pitch and you're using PowerPoint, or, you know, you're able to show a video, using images rather than having text in your PowerPoint is really key. And actually, yeah, one of the things we did was, you know, is to challenge yourself to do a presentation that's got no words in it and just use images.
Oh, wow.
And try that, because it can be much more powerful if you do it in a really good way.
Right. And it forces you to do better preparation too, if you know you can't read off your slides, which nobody should ever read off your slides, but, you know, those bullet points sometimes give you some reassurance when you're up there.
And if you know, and I think if people know of like TED video, like film videos and stuff, it's a great example of how, you know, people deliver great presentations, because they're not worried about the slides should be to assist people to understand what you're saying, not to assist the presenter.
Right.
And so I think that's, you know, that's really, TED's, I think, is a great example of how that they do that with their presentations.
Yeah.
And yeah, my other thing is just to get other people, so to practice and get other people's perspective on your pitch, but also just to not get overwhelmed with the feedback that people give you, kind of, and go with your gut instinct, because sometimes, yeah, it's good to practice and to get input and get other people's perspectives, but it's also important that you really trust your own instincts and kind of deliver a pitch in the way that you think is the best.
Yeah, no, that's true. You can definitely get overwhelmed with feedback, but at the end of the day, you're the one up there, or making your case or communicating, whatever channel that might be, right? So
yeah, No, absolutely.
Yeah. Oh, those are some excellent tips for pitching. I want to jump a little bit to this question because I think I'd love to hear your thoughts on the trends that you're seeing in social enterprise space around communicating. And I know, so I volunteer with the Acumen chapter locally in my city, and they've had some really neat information coming out about lean impact and like lean measurement and communicating. So, but I think there's kind of the conversation around the measurement has been changing, right? Because we've had maybe more charitable sector focus on, very rigorous evidence-based impact testing or measurement. Yeah. And now there's a lot of more solo social entrepreneurs or smaller organizations. So there's this whole spectrum. What do you think, how is it changing and where do you think it's going?
Yeah, and I think it is different for, if you're a charity and you're trying to get funding, you've got to really demonstrate that, your value for money and what you're delivering is going to meet the funders' needs and stuff. I think when you're a solopreneur and maybe working one-on-one with people or, doing something that's very different and unique, the great thing is you get to decide what impact matters and, how you think it matters to your audience in the way that you communicate it. And so sometimes that can be as simple as having, a really great photo and a quote from somebody who's sharing the story that they've been on with you. And the impact that they've experienced or the change they've experienced, all the way through to actually doing rigorous research through a longer process over a year or something. And I think there's space for all of it, but I suppose from my perspective I'm really much more focused on that the simpler stuff at this stage of my business, and kind of developing very simple approaches for people just to capture the outcomes and the impact that they're having and communicating that in very simple ways, particularly using social media and their website and sort of visual graphics. And for me, I think some of the trends around the fact that there's so much more greater and freer access to online technologies means that it's really easy to, mock up your own social media assets with pictures and images and text, to design your own infographics and display information really simply that you can share in presentations or on your website, but also animated videos and thinking about how can you report on it. So if you are a charity and you have to have an annual impact report, for example, how could you display that that's not just in a text report, but could you have a video that kind of explains it, and can you have somebody talking through it rather than just a text-based thing, which I think doesn't necessarily meet everybody's needs, and you're going to get less engagement of it because it's more difficult for a lot of people to read it, or they're just not interested in reading a 40-page document. They'd like to watch a 3-minute video. Right. And I think that links to our trends in kind of digital communications and the fact that we've all got shorter and shorter attention spans, and actually if you want to connect with people you need to be able to do that in 30 seconds or 3 minutes and not kind of be asking for a big commitment from other people. And then if people are interested, they probably will go and read your executive summary or look at your PowerPoint presentation, but it's kind of capturing that very quickly, which I think people have to be conscious of.
Right. So kind of don't be afraid to get creative. Definitely keep it simple and work with what you have and then build it over time when it makes sense. But most importantly, make sure you're connecting those messages out to the audience, right? And yeah, that's really good info.
Yeah, and the only other trend that I've noticed, which again I'm still quite new to, but the thing that I've noticed is that for those social entrepreneurs that are maybe selling to the public sector and have sort of public sector contracts, is this sort of social return on investment, which is about how much return the contractor gets for the pound that they invest. So, can you return £3 or £4 for every pound that they invest in terms of the social value that you give back? And that really isn't an area of my expertise at all, but it's certainly something that I see a lot of training on and a lot of talk about, particularly in that space where social entrepreneurs are working with the public sector for public sector contracts and sort of innovative delivery models and things like that. So that's something to look out for if people are looking in that space.
Yeah, no, that's wonderful. So much good info. And we got a comment from Mariana. She said, Kat, your wording and expression make the complexities of social impact measurement really easy to understand. Thank you. And I would definitely second that, because it can be an overwhelming topic, right? So I think almost this conversation is reaffirming, hopefully, for our listeners that it's okay to do, like, start with what you have and keep it simple, but just make sure you're doing it. And then that's how you get the momentum. That's how you get the ball rolling, right? And start connecting with more and more of your ideal customers and creating that impact with them, and then the ripple reinforcement effect right from there. So
no, absolutely. And I think it's just, don't worry about doing everything at once. Like, start and just do a little bit, piece by piece. And I think the little bits that you do, you build your confidence. And like with anything, you can then move further in the journey and go a bit deeper. And also, ask for help. It's good to get other people's perspectives, learn from what other people are doing, and ask for help, because I think it's out there. Sometimes just getting a different perspective makes you think about how to measure it in a different way.
Perfect. Yeah, because we're, in our bubbles as business owners, and you need to see the forest through the trees sometimes. And having someone else really helps with that. Okay, so I want to start wrapping up with another audience question that we had that will maybe give our listeners a little insight into you as a person, even more than we've talked a lot about your business and the themes. So what drives you as a social entrepreneur? What's at the seed of your why?
Yeah, it was, it's a really interesting question, because I think there's so much, and I think from one day to the next it changes. But I think in essence, it's about a belief that things can change. And also that I think things will only change if people take action. And because of that, I believe, well, I can't wait for other people to take action on the things that frustrate me. I kind of have to just do it, even if it's really scary. And it's even more scary when other people haven't done it first. So I think for me, it's just about being willing to try things out and go for things, because I believe change is possible, and because I believe together with other people, I'll be able to create that change that I want to see. And unless I try, it's not going to happen. So I think what I've learned as well over the last sort of 9-10 months is the more conversations you have, the more you learn, and the more able you are to create that change. And it doesn't have to be on your own, and it's therefore not so scary once you sort of start having those conversations.
Wonderful.
So that's, really what drives me.
Yeah, I love that. So just to wrap up, there's been such an amazing conversation, lots of awesome nuggets of wisdom and advice and insight. Where can people get in touch with you and learn more about what you do if they're really pumped about this conversation and want to keep learning and keep digging?
Yeah, so definitely please come along and join me in my Facebook group. So it's called Share Impact. I also have a Facebook page, so they're both called Share Impact. So whichever one you find first, they'll both link, so you'll be able to find the other one. That's a great place to just connect with me and find out more about what I'm doing, and also link into my podcast that I have. And then I'd also like to offer, at the moment, I've got an Impact Academy course, and I'm basically offering it at whatever price you can afford, because I really need people in the course to help me develop it. So I would love for you to come along and check out the course on my website, which is www.shareimpact.org. And if it's something that you're interested in, I'm literally offering it for whatever you are willing to pay for it at this stage. You'll get lifetime access, you'll get all the developments in the future, but I'm looking for 10 people to join the course that I can walk through with to kind of really help me develop it. So if you're interested in that, I'd love to connect. So I'm also on Twitter and LinkedIn if you want to find me on there.
Okay, fabulous. Yes, and you've been in our group on and off here for a little while, and we've loved connecting with you over the last, I don't know when we first got connected, but I'm glad.
Before the summer, maybe, sort of 6 months ago, maybe.
Yeah. Well, we're very glad you're here live on the show, and that this conversation can forever live on the interwebs to support people who have questions around communicating and measuring their impact.
Yeah,
So
and if anybody else has any other questions, I'd happy to answer them in your Facebook group. I'd love to find out more.
yes, perfect. Thank you for sharing that. So we'll keep an eye on the comments for anybody watching the replay, and also for anybody watching this replay or live, if you want to get connected with learning more about the show every week, every couple weeks. We've done it weekly in the past. Right now we're on bi-weekly, but you never know, we might switch it up going forward. But you can join our newsletter at www.changemakersassociation.com/show and sign up. Well, on that page, you can see all of our past interviews. So Kat will have you up there shortly. And then you can also register to get our weekly newsletter and get updates on what's coming up next. So that's my ending spiel. And I think we're wrapped up. So thanks so much, Kat, for being here. And we look forward to staying in touch.
Yeah, thanks, Danielle. It's been great.
Fabulous. Bye, everybody.